Hi guys, my name is Surjan. I'm 16 and I spend most of my time working on the overlap between linguistics and artificial intelligence. And I actually did not grow up in this country. I've spent most of my life growing up in India. There I had a friend who was always very adamant on finishing all her homework in school. And that just did not sit right with me until she finally told me. She said, it's because there's no light at home. A couple days ago, I was recalling the story and it had me thinking that this also means that in the past 2 years, she has had no form of a formal education. So while most of us were complaining about having to do online classes, at least we had the option. So my team and I decided to find out why there are still 1.5 billion people living in energy poverty. Why are there hospitals that serve hundreds of millions of people unable to provide good treatment? Why are millions of families being forced to switch back to conventional fuels, which are terrible for the environment and bad for their health? And finally, why are a lot of students, a lot like us, going to schools with no electricity supply? So forget online classes. These kids are still dependent on candles for light. Well, turns out it's because the power generation capacity is insufficient and unreliable. The transmission system is so broken that they do not have electrical infrastructure like wires, poles, and towers. And finally, it's because the cost alone is insane. People who live in these communities do not have enough money to support these costs, especially because the cost per connection and operating expenses get higher as the regions get more remote and isolated. So my amazing team and I at InVisible decided to solve this problem using neutrinos. We want to create neutrino voltaic panel that will convert neutrinos' kinetic energy into electricity to aid energy poverty. See, neutrinos are these tiny subatomic particles that are emitted by the sun. They are found everywhere and their supply is endless, making them the perfect new clean energy source for our entire planet. Now, our panels will work a lot like solar panels in the sense that they will not trap the neutrinos, but take a portion of its kinetic energy and convert it into electricity as long as it glides with a dense enough surface. The surface we decided to use are extremely thin and spiked layers of silicon graphene on some metallic substrate. When these neutrinos pass through these layers, they are not trapped, but they do provide graphene with vertical impulse while having the silicon move horizontally. These atomic vibrations create resonance that can be transmitted to the substrate when it's thin enough. That's where the kinetic energy gets converted into, well, electricity. We want to create a standalone neutrino voltaic system. So the direct current that the panel would produce will go to the inverter, where it's converted into alternating current, which can finally be used to light various different devices. We will be skipping over things like batteries, battery banks, or charge controllers, which will make the process more time and cost efficient. Okay, so imagine a solar panel, but let's 10x it. Since our product is not based on the weather or the time of the day, it does not need to be connected with batteries, which were both expensive and bad for the environment. Since they do not also need to be in contact with the sun, they can be stacked, making them more spatially effective. And finally, they are just less expensive. After doing a very basic energy efficiency calculation, we were able to determine that to light the entire city of Juba, all we would need is to charge one voltaic panel that was around 2 parking spaces big, so 28 meters squares, and that would do for an entire day. When we tried doing the same with the current most efficient solar panel, that would have to be over 181,000 parking spaces. That alone is insane. See, I get it. It sounds sci-fi and too good to be true, but it's not. The material already exists. Detecting neutrinos, I'll take it very hard, but there's already a neutrino detector that's working in the South Pole. We have been converting kinetic energy into electricity for decades now, and finally turning them into panels is hard, but it's already working in chips, so that seems like the feasible next step. See, I personally relate a lot to the problem because growing up, I got to see it firsthand. I got to see people being in so much pain because they saw the world around them evolve and did not get to be a part of it. So we at InVisible want to light the world with what's unseen, to help the people who are often left unnoticed. or we just want to make sure no kid has to do their homework in school, because that's the sad part.
Great job, team. Really, really compelling presentation. Love the use of visuals, and the storyline was great. Really attaching something real to a problem that can be difficult to understand. So great job there. I'm curious, one thing that I didn't see in the presentation, who do you see being the customer? Is it individuals? Would it be governments? Would it be other power sources and generators?
So we want to create a standalone system. So that would be, per house. So maybe not the government, but each person. But with that being said, our cause is more humanitarian. So we do want to help people in developing countries which might not be able to afford it. So we've not come up with a perfect business model yet, but we do want to help a lot of people while also making sure our company doesn't go bankrupt.
One thing that really stuck out to me was this comparison you did based on like kind of area of like 2 parking spaces versus whatever it was. And it seemed like an order of magnitude by 6, right? So you went from like, could you help me understand what assumptions you were using to like do that calculation, make that comparison, and maybe you can give me some specifics in terms of like power conversion efficiency. What were you thinking?
So essentially, we worked on I was basing my calculations off of a research paper that I was reading, but our assumptions were that our calculations are based off of the fact that this is one solar panel powered or charged for 1 day. So it's not like over a long period of time. This is only for 1 day and to power the city of Juba for 1 day. So the solar panel will have to be I believe it was over 181,000 parking spaces large to acquire enough charge in 1 day to power that city, whereas our panel would only have to be 28 meters squared. So I did a few calculations in terms of converting, watt hours. So I used the energy usage of people in New York, because in Juba they don't have a lot. That's the lowest city with access to electricity. So obviously there's not going to be a lot of stats. So I took in average energy consumption for people in New York and sort of extrapolated the data to Juba.
Okay, I see. And so were you assuming like a specific like conversion efficiency of your neutrino generator?
Yeah, so because this is a like relatively new sort of discovery, like neutrinos, we had to assume 100% efficiency. Obviously, we know that's definitely not going to be the case, but given that there's not a lot of info out there, that's what we had to go with.
Okay.
What's typical solar efficiency?
Sure.
We assumed 100% efficiency for both
of
them
hours
in the same calculation. So we try to be unbiased.
Fair enough. Cool.
Feedback. I thought, Surgeon, you did a really great job presenting. You did a great job taking something, and it's not sleepy in any way. It's still interesting, but you injected yourself into it. And so I really liked your presentation.
Thank you so much.